So we're going to be talking about how plants can affect air quality, and I did two different sections. So I have indoor air quality and outdoor air quality. So air quality is measured using the AQI, normally like US AQI, and it's measured kind of in degrees. So it goes from 0 to 500, but typically you really don't want AQI past 150. Um, so anything in like below the 100 range is ideal, but anything above 100 can get really bad, has very severe health effects. The AQI tracks five major pollutants, and those are ground level ozone, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, and like any airborne particles. In this presentation, I use PM a lot, and that's just for particulate matter. So anything small that you can inhale, and the smaller particles can actually get really up in your body systems, like up in your lungs, and they stay there longer because they're smaller and they're harder for your body to filter out. So particulate matter that's like smaller than 0.25, I think micrometers, has pretty severe health effects. You'll also see like VOCs referenced in the presentation, and those are volatile organic compounds, and they're also important indicators of air quality. The thing with the AQI is it only tracks those five major pollutants. So air quality in an area can still be pretty bad, but it doesn't necessarily have a bad AQI rating just because the pollutants that are causing health problems in an area may not be related to things that the AQI measures. Air quality has really important short and long-term effects on health. There have been a lot of really interesting studies about the difference between short-term and long-term effects because your body's really good at like cleaning itself out. And that applies to like your lungs and your throat and your nose and things that are immediately affected by air when you breathe. And so short-term, you have like your eyes get scratchy when like if you're allergic to pollen, your throat and nose are really affected. You can get tired and dizzy, but your body can really easily recover from short-term exposure to fairly unhealthy air because it's so good at cleaning itself out. But if you're exposed to that really bad air quality day in and day out for like a really long period of time, years and years, then you'll end up with respiratory diseases, heart diseases, and even cancer, depending on the chemicals that are found in the air. And here I have another for each AQI value, what the resulting health effects are. So you'll see that pretty soon, like AQI gets up to like pretty large numbers, but 100 even AQI of 100 can have negative health effects for people who are more sensitive, who may have respiratory diseases from birth. So air quality is very important, and bad air quality really quickly starts affecting people's health. So there's a lot of variation in air quality worldwide, specifically because of how very urban areas just have very different emissions than rural areas. And I have a chart here that lists kind of like the worst air quality worldwide based on some different cities we have. And I read a really interesting thing about Delhi, because Delhi has really, really bad air quality issues because it's so heavy on fossil fuel burning, and it's just so hot that causes a lot of like ground level ozone to be created. And I read an interesting story about this guy who worked in Delhi, and in order to solve the problems that he was having with his lungs, his doctors told him he was going to have to move out of Delhi because the air quality was so bad it was going to affect his long-term health. But instead, he decided that he was going to try to improve the air quality of the office building that he worked in because he was the owner of the office building. And so he used plants and air filters to filter all of the air coming in from outside before it came into the building. So these areas with really negative air quality, it's hard to get away from it. You can't escape bad air quality. That's one of the main reasons that air quality is such a prevalent issue. And it does tend to be a lot worse in cities. Because cities are heat islands and they get the concrete and all of the asphalt gets so hot that it causes chemical reactions of the particles in the air, and that creates what we know as smog. And smog is really, really bad for our lungs. So plants can help with a lot of these problems, but it's really important to keep in mind that plants are not a solution, and that preventing these emissions in the first place is really the only true answer. Now, plants can definitely be used to help the problem, but we can't bank everything on just solving the problem after we've created it. So like I said, plants can help outdoor air quality, and they can help directly or indirectly. So indirectly, because plants shade all of the asphalt, they prevent it from getting so hot and getting hot enough for those chemical reactions to happen, for smog to happen. And then directly, plants can cause dispersion of really dense clouds of particulate matter and pollutants in the air. They kind of help to dilute just concentrated areas of pollution. And also through deposition, their leaves can collect the particulate matter and the pollution in the air. Specifically with like plants that have really waxy or hairy leaves, they can collect a lot more negative particles from the air. Like I said before, plants can't solve the problem because the only way to really improve air quality permanently and keep it from getting worse is to stop those harmful emissions. So focusing on plants is awesome, but it's really important to keep in mind that we need to look for a long-term solution for air quality that really involves preventing those harmful emissions. Another problem with using plants to improve air quality is it's really hard to get plants to take up the surface area you need to really make a difference in the air, because plants like account for such a small surface area of the air in any space, and that goes for rooms as well. So you have to make sure if you're using plants that they're taking up enough surface area to really make a dent in the air quality. But just because plants are not the end-all be-all doesn't mean that they shouldn't be included at all, because green spaces in general really help to mitigate the problems you have with asphalt and the creation of smog in the first place. So if we're able to incorporate more green spaces on the roofs of buildings and just more parks, green walls as well, you really prevent those hot asphalt surfaces from being exposed to the sun and therefore smog to be created, which is really beneficial for air quality. And also, any small positive effect is better than no positive effect at all. So we should definitely be looking plants for any positive effect that we can get. So plants can make a small difference in improving air quality. The best plants are conifers. They're really good natural air purifiers because they have those waxy leaves, so they can get the particulate matter out of the air more easily. They're also evergreen trees are preferred to trees that will lose their leaves in the winter because they will maintain their ability to remove particulate matter from the air year round, as opposed to only working seasonally. And some studies have shown that silver birch, yew, and elder trees are highly successful at removing particulate matter. So different species will remove different pollutants from the air more readily. It's really important when you're urban planning and you want to include plants in your plans. You really want to have a large diversity of plants. You don't want to use a bunch of the same tree. And that helps with a lot of things. It helps with the pollution you're removing from the air, but it also really helps to maintain biodiversity in an area, which is really important. So when you're looking at what trees you want to include in an area, you want to make sure that you're not just like planting trees that have the best stats for removing pollution. You also want to plant trees that are going to work well with your local ecology. So one tree that has proven to be really effective for cities to use to reduce air pollution are evergreen oaks. They're very tolerant to pollution, which is really great for cities that have high runoff and are going to be fairly polluted areas. And these trees are going to present the least amount of problems for maintenance, and they're evergreen, so they can work year round to continue to remove that air pollution, even when it gets cold outside. And they also have really dense canopies that grow pretty large, so they can shade a lot of that ground to prevent the creation of smog. And then, like I said, conifers are also really awesome trees for this. They have, again, that dense canopy that you want for maximum shading. They're really effective at reducing that particular matter, more so than trees that their leaves will fall off come winter time, because they can keep working year round. And then we have the Norway Maple. These are really awesome trees at preventing smog. They reduce the particulate matter in the air. They're also super fast growing and they can provide lots of shade. There have been a lot of studies with this tree and they've all shown they have like a really amazing ability to reduce air pollution, at least experimentally, as it has been shown. However, I also read this thing, because these trees are so fast growing, they're able to like reproduce really well, which is awesome, except they're also highly like easily become invasive because of their ability to grow. So you have to be careful, like I said, with the plants you choose to plant. You have to be really aware of local ecology because you don't want to disrupt that intending to do something good. Another great plant for cities is common ivy because you can create green walls with common ivy instead of taking up the amount of floor space that trees do. A couple problems that people encounter when using trees to improve city air quality is the amount of floor space you need for trees, just the amount of space a canopy can take up. But also when you have areas with like tall buildings and alleyways, air kind of gets stuck in those alleyways, and trees, because of their canopies, can actually keep air in there, so it concentrates pollutants towards the ground, which is the opposite of what you want. But if you have something like common ivy, you can create green walls and it allows the airflow to stay. So you can have the air circulating in and out more effectively than you could with trees that are trapping pollutants closer to the ground. So they're super awesome for areas where you have a lot of limited space. And they grow really quickly. They're pretty low maintenance. And they don't have as great of a like capability of capturing particulate matter as other plants, but because of their ability to take up such a large surface area with like little area for rooting, they really can be ideal and can in the long term work better. And now we have indoor air quality. So indoor air quality has been a problem for a long time because it tends to be worse than outdoor air quality just because of all the things that happen indoors. You have cooking, cleaning, the running of AC units, just even furniture can drywall, paint. There are just chemicals inside that are not as easily dispersed as they are outside. Having great like ventilation indoors is really the best way to keep your indoor quality good, but that just means your indoor air quality is only as good as your outdoor air quality. So having a well-ventilated space is ideal to maintain good indoor air quality, but it's not helpful for places that have bad outdoor air quality like Delhi and India, like I was talking about. So plants can help to improve this air quality, but it's important to keep in mind that high-quality air filters are really the best way to make sure that indoor air quality is really good. But the more surface area that plants make up, the greater their ability to impact air quality is. So the more plants you have, the more chance you have of those plants making a difference on your air quality. The reason that plants have in open spaces, it's hard to quantify their impact on air quality because in a really highly ventilated space, it's hard to track the difference they make. So it's easier to see kind of outdoors in like very green spaces, a difference in air quality as opposed to inside because your air is constantly circulating out. So NASA did a really interesting study where they were considering using plants in their air filtration systems, and they tested a pretty wide variety of plants. If you guys are interested in looking at that study, I can send you a link to it. It's pretty cool. But one of the plants that was really amazing at filtering out benzene and formaldehyde specifically was the Gerbera daisy. They're pretty, like they did really, really well in this study at removing these pollutants from the air. They really outperformed all of the other plants tested, and it was really interesting to me because whenever you read about air quality, this isn't one of the first plants that comes up. Normally you'll get something like a spider plant because they're like impossible to kill and like easy to take care of. But these guys are really awesome. They outperformed a lot of the other plants pretty substantially in the study. And then again, we have English ivy. They're really effective at removing benzene and formaldehyde from the air. And they're really good for places that have like limited floor space. So you can grow ivy just like down a wall. They're just really easy to grow, easy to take care of. And just the surface area they can take up is really better than a lot of plants that take up more space for potting. And that's really what you're looking for when you want to improve air quality using plants, is you have to have something that takes up a large surface area so that you have like the most contact between the air and the leaves as possible. Another plant that did really well in the study was the bamboo palm. They were the most effective at removing formaldehyde from the air, but they could also remove benzene and trichloroethylene. And they're also nice because they add moisture to the air, so they prevent that really, really dry air. And then we also have the spider plant. These are really awesome and they're kind of impossible to kill. So they're really perfect for people who, are kind of new to taking care of plants, but also want a plant that will help improve the air quality. And they're also capable of removing carbon monoxide from the air.